So we're live now?
Yes.
So if anybody's watching, hello, Casino Industry Canada. I just wanted to thank to be honest, I want to thank everybody for actually joining that group. I'm really kind of getting engaged into that group. We've got 1,471 people have joined it, and the membership peaked really quickly. We've kind of plateaued a little bit, so I don't know if that's as much as we're going to get, but I really think it's kind of cool. And to be honest, it's all thanks to Jay, because Jay set it up and it was kind of his idea. But I think it's really cool so far, where we can share stories and experiences and ideas and things like that, and hopefully help people out in this kind of tough time. And we all need to laugh, because it's kind of tough times for a lot of people, and some of the stories make me laugh. So some of my stories make people laugh, so it's all good. And maybe some things make people pissed off too. That's all good. So yeah, so thanks a lot for doing that. Also, subscribe to Casino Dealer J. There, whatever that thing is, subscribe. Watch his videos. He's awesome. He gets on some really cool people. And you don't have to listen to me all the time, which is something that I'm sure a lot of people are like, thank God. No more of that guy with a funny accent. So I don't know. Oh, so is that a comment? Oh yeah, but this is also, hey, White, how's it going? This is going to be really kind of choppy, because this is the first time I'm driving the bus, and as I'm from Wales, I'm used to driving on the other side of the road, so it'll be a bit chaotic. So we'll see how it goes. So Wyatt, I don't think I ever got to work with you. I know I worked in casinos in Canada for a very short period. I worked for 5 years in a palace. So from 2000 to 2005. So, but no, it was definitely a fun experience. I had a great time. I met so many cool people, and in all honesty, if I didn't like them, I wouldn't be speaking to them. Like 15 years after I left the casino, and admittedly, 15 years after I've left the casino, some of them aren't speaking to me. So, so there's always that. So, okay, so this is one question I have, and I'm in another group, but it's the Casino Lounge one on Facebook. I don't really go into it, to be honest, because I think it's mostly Americans. And some of the stuff I'm like, I don't want to get in there, because it seems to be more argumentative, and some stuff are okay, but it's anyway, I don't get into the pulp of that. So one of the things that I was kind of talking about, and now we have people on who may have gone into casinos. So this is, with some dealers returning to work, what are some of the things to expect? Because I'm sure it's it's totally new, right? The whole one, how do we deal with a mask on? I mean, like, I mean, I've dealt with a mask on, but it was Halloween. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, maybe better keep this on because I might get something nasty. So it's just like, so I'm just kind of surprised that, how many different things different casinos are trying to do. Like I posted in that the Casino Industry Canada website. It was a video from the casino I trained in back in Cardiff. The casino had moved from the original location I was at. It moved to a different location, but it was this weird, like, segregated, scary kind of like poker table, and they seemed to protect about 6 or 7 of the players, but not the dealer. It's like the dealer was just sat there with like 2 players either side of him, like uncomfortably close. I was like, well, what about the dealer? I was like, so and I've seen a few other things from, people have posted across Canada, like Montreal and things like that. And so I was just curious of how the different casinos are managing the different, the safety and how to deal. This would be a completely different way for us to deal. So we had one person on. Wyatt was on, and then he's off again. He was in and out without a shout. There you go, Wyatt Honeymoon Roll McNabb. Oh, so yeah, I guess I did. So Wyatt said he left the palace in 1999. I came to Canada originally in 1998, August 98. Got married, left. Did a couple more contracts on for Royal Caribbean, and then came back to Canada in September 99. And yeah, I joined the palace in January 14th, I think it was, something like that. So,
Yeah, you were there after Wyatt. I started in '98, and he was still there. And he was one of the three games managers. So yeah, and then craps happened.
I definitely remember hearing your name when I first started because people would talk about him. All positive things, as they do. Casinos are full of positive people who always just say the nicest things about people. So rest assured, Wyatt, nobody said a bad word about you at all. um, okay, so this is a question because I don't seem to think we don't seem to have. Do we have anybody on? I
yeah,
can't tell.
there's three.
It's three. Okay, so here's a question. Um, and because a lot of people didn't get to deal craps, but dealt in a long time. So which game do you think is harder to deal, craps or roulette? Jay, what do you think?
Well, I and man, it's such a tough question. It's really dependent on the kind of game that you have. If you have like a busy game on both ends, like you have busy craps game and busy roulette game, it really depends on like how you have it set up. Like if you have you know, I remember you were telling me like you were dealing like to the pence, and that's probably a lot more difficult than dealing like a standard $5 game. So it's the same with roulette. Like if there's quarters on the table, if you have 300 chips, then for me, the reason why this question really confuses me is because with craps, once you learn the game, it's pretty much straightforward. Like the more you memorize, the better you get. You know the payouts over and over and over again. After repetition, you should know like how to do your presses, how to do your payouts. But then when you do roulette, you don't know, and it's always a new payout. If it's like a monster hit, I mean that's the thing. It's never, I mean like the one straight up is consistent, but it's never the same payout, and it's always different. So I don't know. I might have to say roulette, and that's being like competent on both games. I'm not saying like you're awesome at craps and you're not good at roulette. I think if you're like really good at both games, it might be roulette. What do you think?
Well, roulette was the first game I ever dealt. So I remember I didn't know any of the game at all. So I first walked into the casino and I said, okay, you're dealing roulette. It was a weird place I worked at, but it was fun. And I remember the lady that was teaching us, she was about, I don't know, 45 months pregnant. And so we're like, well, she goes, I'm not going to be here very long, but I'll teach you as much as I can. We ended up having her for like, I think like 2 weeks, and she was super nice. But I remember the first day we get in, she goes, oh, the first thing you need to do is how to spin the ball. And I was like, still 17. I hadn't turned 18. I was a few weeks away from 18. So I remember she said, oh, I'm going to teach you how to spin the ball because that's the first thing you should do. And you have to do it both hands. And I was like, that sounds so easy. And then she's like, okay, you do it. So I got the ball, and it was like a little ivory ball, and I got it, and I put it like on my finger there, like I was going to flick it, and I just flicked it around the wheel, and it went. And she's like, no, you can't do it like that. You can't do it like that. I was like, well, it works. She said, no, you got to spin it, do the whole spin thing. And back then they used to have to do it with both hands. And in the training room, we had the two left and right-handed wheels. So then we had to, both hands and change directions. But I remember it was always a nightmare because you've dealt roulette with the other wheel where, like say, the two numbers that alternate. Do you know what I mean? Like what's the nearest number to you on one side is the opposite number to you on the other table. So many times I was like, poof, poof, what? Wrong. No, yeah, exactly. You just mark the wrong number and blow it all away. So I think, yeah, for me, I never learned. I don't know. It's probably terrible, but I was always pretty good at math. So I only ever learned 1 to 10 for everything, like a straight up split. I never learned picture bets. I was just like, okay, I'll just 1 to 10 and I'll just add things and just do it in my weird and wonky way. But I loved dealing with that. I really did. And I thought it was it was kind of like it's a really cool style to it. And I dealt like 25 cents roulette, so 25p roulette. And you get these idiots, they buy in, they're like, I want 300 chips. And you're like, oh no, it'd be like, quick story about the roulette. Sorry, I go off on a tangent. But I think, to be honest, I think to your point, I think roulette is very difficult to deal. And I think, in all honesty, I think they're on par. Because there's so many intricacies that do we have the wheel here? I don't know if we have the wheel for call bets. And on the single roulette wheel, there's there's French roulette bets. So you can throw in a bet and go, okay, we want Tia, we want the orphans, which no one ever plays, and Vassum to zero, and then and all those big call bets, summing to the maximum. I mean, it's tremendously complex, right? So in hindsight, it might be more complex and harder to deal than craps, I think. When you get to that kind of like crazy level where some of the bets are just insane, right? So I think the complexity, like can I just tell one story? It's okay. Nobody's here. They, this is just between just between you, me, and anybody else who's on here right now. Anyway, so I posted a story, I think about the other day about working Christmas Day, and I was working in London, and so I was in this house, and it was like 7 guys from Cardiff, and we'd all kind of moved up to London. We all worked in separate different casinos, and it was a crazy fun house. We had so much fun. We were only supposed to be 3 of us in this house on the lease, and whenever like the landlord came over, we all had to hide. We had to climb over the fence and hide. It was terrible, but anyway, it was a great party house. And with this one Christmas, it was the first time casinos had been allowed to open in Britain, and they opened at 6 o'clock to like I think it was like 2 in the morning. So it was like an 8-hour shift. And me and my friend, we weren't going back to Cardiff because we were supposed to work like Christmas Eve, and we had to work Christmas Day. So it was like one day off, and everyone else was gone home and so it was like it's just me and him, and we're like, well, should we just work? Because we asked for volunteers. They paid us triple time, and they're like, we'll give you this big, huge like roast dinner, and we'll give you alcohol every break. We're like, oh, sign me up. So we went in there, and honest to God, it was this. I mean, it was like a West End casino. So it was it's on Baker Street actually, and it was a really nice casino, right? Really nice, high end. The punters were crazy, were like wealthy, but it was only like 2 casinos. The entire London was open, so this place was just wall to wall people. They were lining up. It was just 8 hours of 8 people playing. It was crazy, busiest thing I'd ever done. Anyway, so every break they would come and they put like 2 or 3 pitchers of beer, and he was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" It was like that. And eating is like, "Oh, I had more fun in the break room than any of it. It was so much fun." And anyway, and I was dealing roulette this night, and it was crazy busy. So I come back out. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. So the last hour, and I went up to the pit boss. And for most people on this call, or whoever's on this call, in Britain, they have like a break list where they assign you. They don't have this, you're on this rotation. They go, okay, John, you're on blackjack this time, or roulette this time, or whatever. Right? So I woke up, I said, can I just go on blackjack? I've been on roulette all night, and I'm really drunk. I can't go on jack. I can't go on. Don't put me on roulette. So the pit boss was so mad at me. He goes, John, and he was this older guy, and he's like, you get on that table. So I was like, oh, no, don't. So I went on it, and it was like super busy. Everything was like this. And it's all like high denominations. And I went on there, and I must have spun this guy's number about 5 or 6 times in a row. And I just opened up these huge monster bets, and I put the dolly on and go, no idea. and the pit boss and the pit manager were like, they were working out, and they were getting, and I do it again, and I think I hit the same number like 3 times, and it just kept getting bigger, and I do no idea. I didn't even bother trying to do it. I just like, no idea. I had no idea. And at the end of it, so after the now, and it's like last bid, and because everybody's winning, everybody's trying to play on this one table. So it just getting busier and busier. And I wasn't nervous. I was like, whatever, I've been doing it a long time by this point. But I just kept hitting the numbers. They were huge, and I didn't have a clue. I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. And after an hour, when the game was end, the pit manager came up to me, swore really badly, and he went, I should have put you on blackjack at 1 o'clock. I said, I told you I didn't want to do it. But yeah, to your point, I think craps is a way more complicated bet, a game to deal to any kind of standard than roulette. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I've done both of them for quite a long time.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, it definitely depends on the kind of game. And that just reminds me of like when I kept asking you, it's like, man, how does that wheel work? Because every week I'd be asking you the same question. It's like, what are these orphans? Yeah, no, I don't understand the neighbors. And then you'd like explain to me, but because I've never even seen it, the next week I'd ask the exact same question to you. And you'd just be like, whatever.
And this is how much of a dumb gambler I am. So there's, I think if I remember rightly, like the tier is one of these like French roulette bets because it's on a French roulette wheel. It's like a 6-piece bet, whatever. Well, you know this. And
Sort of.
so I used to bet that, whatever. And then when I used to play roulette on, in the Caribbean or on whatever, I used to bet the same bets, but it was like the numbers were all over the place. So it made no sense at all. I was like, I'll just do it anyway. Same odds, probably.
It's funny because like Vancouver has a wheel too, but it's not the same. It's just for like sections, I guess, right? So then like you'd say like 00 and then cross 2 each or whatever, and then they'd
Oh,
set
the
it up.
neighbor bets. You're talking
Yeah,
about neighbor bets.
yeah,
That's different.
yeah. They had toonies too. That's how they instead of like 2.5s that we had here in Alberta, like they love playing twos there. So I wanted to bring that in because it's just a little more simpler. But everyone's like, oh, we're supposed to get our max bet at 25. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, because that casino that I worked in, we had we had the neighbor bets.
Yeah.
There was because I started two different. I used to love neighbor bets because you get these guys and they'd be waiting for you to spin a wheel and they'd be like 247, like 1417, and the neighbors and they just throw in the quarters and you're like, poof, and we used to have little llamas and they had like, so the number was in the middle, so say 20, and then it'd have like north, south, east, west was the other numbers. And then you'd have to put them all down, and the ball spinning. And it was crazy action. You put it down, you have to put these numbers down, and then you have to remember, okay, whose was what? Where did this come from? And then it was, the other one I dealt, which I didn't like as much because it didn't seem as much fun, was the racetrack. You seen the racetrack?
Yes. Yeah.
Where you would just plonk it there, and then if it came in, you're like, oh, okay, this one, and you take the chips and do that. But the llamas were cool because it was, I don't know if you've seen it, but it was also kind of like staggered in like first, second, third dozen, right? So yeah, and then you can go and pick them up, and then you put them up, and yeah, when you got good at it, it was really fun to deal because people be like, they wouldn't buy in, they would just sit there and wait, and then just throw the cash, and then they just call all these bets, and usually it was kind of like say 3 or 4 consecutive like. Anyway, this was London when they was doing it. They'd be like, say, like the 3 red numbers in a row, and then they would kind of like get all the neighbors on them. Some would burn another, but that was a really fun part of the game.
Mm. Did you hear about a 72 number wheel? Because that's like a new thing. 72 number. I think it's 72. I'm gonna have to, yeah.
How big is the wheel?
It's huge. It is huge. Like I'm not even like kidding. Like apparently this is a new thing. So I just heard about it. I'm like, what is this? So talk about sectioning there, right?
Thinking about the wheel, I mean, like, I think at one point I did learn the wheel on like the French roulette one, the British one, like so that because I mean a lot of the really good dealers I saw on roulette knew the wheel, and they would be throw these neighbors in, and they'd be like, yeah, and I'd call them out, and they would know what won just from the top of their head because they knew it, and I was like, I couldn't do it. That's why you like to use the llamas. But I remember so. When I came here, I mean, I'm sure you could still do the same thing. I don't know if it'd be a fun part of roulette, right? If you started introducing that. I don't know if like the llamas, it was a really kind of exciting way to play for a lot of people, right? Because they'd be like, I don't need to put the chips out. And if they're always betting the same numbers, they could just throw these things in, and the dealers be like, okay. And it kind of did speed up the game a lot because you're not having to put all this chips out all the time. You're like, well, I'm betting the same 12 numbers, whatever. But I saw something posted on roulette. It was a consecutive numbered wheel, so it was like 1 to 36. It's like, what? I mean, it doesn't make a difference, right? But it was just like, well, what? It was really weird to see it. It was like, yeah, it was just the strangest thing.
Well, that's good for math. I was 18 off. Look at that. It's like the best complaints. That's exactly 9 off.
We used to get these little old guys back in Cardiff with their little notepads and they write it down. And we had spokes on the wheel too. That was really weird. You ever seen that? Really? Yeah. So when you span it, you'd spin it the other way, and the spokes would go, and then and then you grab the spokes again. And you have to. They would get really pissy if you kind of grab the pit bosses and pack managers. If they caught you kind of like not grabbing the spokes to spin the wheel. Oh, no. But that was the casino training. They were just crazy anyway. But it was definitely a fun place. But I found actually now, weirdly enough, talking about the place I worked in, they say on their website now that they're the only casino outside of London with a craps table. So if that's true, craps has died in the UK.
Oh
I
wow.
mean, which is, in all honesty, is really sad, because
Mhm.
there was so many like amazing dealers, and I, like I said, I was in three, four, five, like 7 or 8 casinos, I think 6 or 7 in Britain, which different types of craps games there, and it's sad if now that game has died in Britain, because not only is it sad that the whole generation of craps dealers have gone, that they can't deal anymore, but
Yeah.
they've lost the opportunity to travel, right? I mean, I got so much opportunities because I knew craps to a
Mhm.
certain level, I suppose. But it's kind of shitty if that's true.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like me too. Like I mean, if it wasn't for craps, then I don't think I would have enjoyed my time like on the ships, and I wouldn't have been able to train when I came back. And so it kind of sucks that the game's kind of ended up like this. And really, there isn't too much you can do other than like lower the limits. But I mean, the argument here was that why would I want to have 4 people staffed when I can just open up 3 blackjack tables? That's going to make me more money. People aren't going to be intimidated, you know. And it's about the players too. It's like people know how to play blackjack, right? They don't want to come in and try to learn craps sometimes. So
It's true. If you're looking at it a pure like um, casino, like economic side of it, like you re- you return on the investment. Okay, it's cost me X amount of dealers to, dollars to run it per hour. It generates X amount of dollars revenue. It takes up this much square foot of my floor. I can replace it with this and increase revenue. Blah blah blah. But I think the problem then though is you've also lost the people who want to play that game. Like when I used to deal in Cardiff, this is when I trained, like, and I'm there for 3 years. It was the only one at the time within about 200, like 300 kilometers. So we had a catchment area of 300 kilometers, well, pretty much even half, right? So 150 kilometers, where people would just drive specifically with their friends and go, yeah, man, let's go to Cardiff for the night. We're going to go out with party and we're going to play craps. And it was just like, all of a sudden these guys would come in and they'd have tons of money because they couldn't play, regularly, but they'd come and they would just blow like a huge amount of money. We knew them all, like, oh, there's Bristol John. And this one guy, he was massive and he owned like this scrap metal place, right? Like, and he would shout, and he was huge and he was fun, and he'd go, come on, my babber, like Babber's baby, right? And he'd be so, come on, my babber. He was so much fun, and he was so loud and big, and everybody would just come over. He was better than being like getting people to play than like me on the stick or somebody on the stick, because everybody would want to come and watch him. And it was great when I went to work in Bristol a few years later
Mhm.
to deal to all the old British, like the Bristol dealers I dealt to years before, but now actually in Bristol. So I think you lose those players, right?
Yeah,
If you don't have, even if it's like a once a week or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a travesty to lose a game where there was so much skill and fun, and just to
yeah,
replace it with like low limit blackjack.
yeah. No, I understand that for sure. I mean, you want to have that variety when you go into a casino. Well, for me as a player, I definitely want to see a craps table, but I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to like justify if you're just in our industry where it's charitable. It's a charity industry. Like typically, if I'm thinking craps, like I'm thinking more than one table when I go to a casino. And I want to see like a craps pit because I don't want
Mhm.
to like get stuck on one table. Like, I like I like going to Vegas because I like seeing so many tables open. But with everything that's been happening, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with a lot of these games. Like right now, there's no craps. Where I work, there's no craps. They're not opening it anytime soon, I believe. Probably got tiles. I mean, some places aren't even opening up poker. So I'm thinking this is temporary, but who knows? Like, this might be the reason why you wouldn't want to bring a table game back, right? Could be this could be it. So
The challenge, I think, though, and like I still have a lot of friends in the casino industry, either from a lot of them on ships and back home, stuff like that, where it's you can put up all these screens and you can wear a mask, you can do all these different things, but they're still touching the chips. How can you
yeah,
stop people touching the chips, right? I mean, unless you can remove that, then if you remove that, then it becomes like a digital game. You're playing a slot machine, right? So I don't know how they can keep the chips. Like you can always, I mean, can you imagine having every roll of the dice, you're wiping the dice with some like Lysol wipes just to go, okay, you pass them out, and then you that's all again. You're like, oh, this is good. Or, yeah. So it's still, I don't think I haven't seen anybody's answer, apart from I think one, sorry, where it just didn't make sense to me, where the players didn't touch the roulette chips. It was in a Montreal casino where they bought in, and then the dealer placed all the chips, and then when they cashed out, they didn't get like cash chips. They got like, it's like, sounds like a coupon, like they'd write on there, and then they would go, okay, I owe you $275.50. And then he give that, and then he would go to the cash desk and they can get that money. But then, okay, yeah, all of a sudden you've got rid of chips and you've just wrote like, oh, like how secured is that? A piece of paper. Oh yeah, this is not going to get abused, is it? Yeah, I don't know why he was ever so lucky. Every time Jay Lee was on the table, and John was the pit boss.
couple ones on the left. Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. Great. Well, let's see. Jade has a comment here because you guys are back. Oh, by the way, I did get called back actually. So, but I couldn't make my orientation because I have another job. So, one day I'll be back. It's cool. I'm really happy for the dealers that are back. All I say is just like be safe. That's the most that anyone can really hope for right now. But yeah, her comment is at the Cree they're wiping the dice every roll. I thought it was after every player, but every roll. Oof, that's a lot of Lysol wipes.
But here's the thing. I know my son, when this all first started, he's 12, and his hand started to react to all the like the sanitizers, right? And he got his like rash, but like maybe you want to calm down, like washing in it. So imagine 8 hours of using like some Lysol wipes on your hands and stuff like that.
Yeah,
8 hours every day. It would be like, my God, like I don't know. It's just sometimes we a lot of times I think we do things like companies do things and they don't understand the downstream effects of the things they implement. It's like, oh, this seems like a brilliant idea. Oh, okay, box may wear gloves, have to stand on top of everything else. Okay, so they wear gloves.
You can push those, eh? Do you know how to display them? You just click on them.
Oh yeah. So Jay, this is the first time me driving the bus. So if it's completely terrible, that's 100% because it's me trying to click these boxes. I'm like, ooh, what's that button do? And there's a mosquito in my basement, so that's kind of annoying. So that would be. Are they like the Perspex kind of like the rubber gloves, like those kind of gloves?
Yeah, they have to be the blue ones, right?
How are you going to cut down chips with it? I don't know if it's possible. I mean, I'm sure they can.
I did a chip trick video with gloves.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was just like
it sucks. Well, actually, no. You know what? You were just talking about like your son. When I started at the hospital, I was constantly we constantly had to like do we had PPE, but we had to do just constant hand washing and sanitizing. And my hands got so dry that when I ended up working back at the casino, I couldn't even pull a card out of the chute because my hands were so slick and dry, and it just like I couldn't even deal baccarat after that. So
that's funny because I'm sure everyone was like, "Oh my God, Jay Lee is so good. You gotta watch his hand here. He's amazing. You should watch his hands." And you're like,
"It's like I can't even get the." I was dealing blackjack. I was dealing blackjack. I couldn't even get the card out of the chute. And he's like, "You got a problem?" I'm like, no, it's fine. It's like, so I had to go and buy like this. Whatever that thing was, that pink stuff, and I bought it, and then like, oh wow, all of a sudden it's like I'm back,
Oh, that's like they use to count money, like is that the stuff?
Yeah. I was like, what is this, And then I became one of those dealers that brought their own little thing. I forgot what it's called, but
yeah, because you wouldn't be able to lick your fingers either, like to try and get you like some kind of like
No, my head was bald and sweaty, right? Because it's hot. So then I just feel like.
So
I can't
okay,
believe I
so
said that.
Jade, I'm pretty sure I didn't work with you. So what are you? Do you sit box in Cree in the River Cree?
Yeah, I used to. I worked with Jade at Yellowhead actually before she moved to the Cree. But yeah, I
Oh,
think she sits box. But yeah, she's well versed in the craps game, in the craps dealing. So
cool.
very good dealer. Oh, you are boxing. Yeah.
So here's a actually I was asked by and I'll put it on here because I think it was kind of a really valid point. Heather from Vegas Aces, who's awesome, and you should whoever's watching this should just follow her on YouTube because she's awesome. And her what she does is I think is incredible. And over the last 10 years or so, she asked me to be on her show on Saturday, and I wasn't able to make it. But hopefully I'll come on. I'll go on that again. But she had this really cool idea to what can dealers practice while they're in, not working, social isolation, things like that. Not social isolation, but no, what skills can we practice? So then when we go back on the table, it's not like, oh my God, how do I do this again? I can't remember the shuffle. And so what would you think? Jade or you, Jay?
For me, I mean, not like a big fan of the speed test. I don't know. Like the reason, it's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's pretty excessive. I mean, like to take that many, like those many chips to set them up. You know, you need your own table and whatnot. So like, am I gonna bring out like a case of chips and do it at home? I don't think so, right? For me, I'm more of like a one stack, two stack. When I'm warming up and doing drills, I need 12 chips. And like for me, my favorite drill is just to pick one chip, and then drop cut one, pick two, drop cut two. And I think that's like there's a competition, like the European competition, like they do the drop cutting cuts, and like that's cool too. But if it's for craps, I need to like be able to pick one, two, three, four, five. If I'm Joe, I need to pick six. But yeah, it's like picking and drop cutting, and like for me, one stack is good. And like I don't want to admit it, but like if I'm on the table, that's usually what I'm doing. And I'm casing. Like if I'm casing a layout and I'm on base, I'm just picking and drop cutting. It's a bad habit, but it gets your hands in the game. So, what about you?
Jade or me?
You?
Um, well, this is what I was going to say. All the, all deal it's a very kind of generic question, I thought. And I thought, well, basically most dealers know their own kind of weaknesses. Like I spoke to you before, Jay, and I said I knew which side of the table I was better on. Whenever I did table tests, I always made sure I just subtly stood on the left hand side of the boxman, and I did them there because I could throw chips and catch them in the come, and that was basically what I was better. I was okay dealing on either side, but I mean, so I said, well, if you know what your weaknesses are, you practice them to make them better, right? So um, I would like, and I agree with you. It's all the dexterity thing. I mean, the whole like, who's going to have like, okay, we need 300 chips and a half layout, and we're going to pay all these bets and come out, and then you bring it back and then do it in under 2.5 minutes. No, I'm not. No one's going to do that. I mean, but are you going to be like, okay, I'm going to practice in my head how quickly I can just maybe pay out. And it's hard as well to say what someone should do because the action is different in different casinos, right? Like I said, when I trained in Cardiff, we had multiples of $1.25 on 5 or 9 and $1.50. So it'd be hard to say, well, you need to practice 6 to 60. Well, like, what if nobody's playing like that, right? So whatever that game is, practice to that action, right? And like, but the dexterity is I think where it gives you that added advantage, and you can always get better, right, with the chipping and how you can pick it up. And here was another thing that it always drives me crazy, and it was pretty much beaten out of us when I learned from Roulette in the crazy casino I worked in, is when dealers have to reload when they do a drop cut. Have to put the stack down and pick up and then do that. Rather than go, okay, I'm going to cut 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rather than go, okay, a 5 and I have to put the stack down. You know what I mean? Like every time they have to like reset, I was like, what are you doing? Just open up the bet, or be able to do it without putting the chips down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so this is Jade's. So Jay said, honestly, dexterity will come back. Just having payouts in mind would be my preference. And that was the other thing I was going to say too, because the difference, I think, from land-based casinos to kind of like where you have an established dice kind of like player group, whatever, is compared to say like when we were on cruise ships or where there's a lot of like traffic in and out that you don't see, is you learn and anticipate how the player plays, right? I mean, so it's like Jay comes in, this is how he plays, and da da da. And I think after a while, especially the one you start to forget that kind of thing. It's like, okay, what does Jay do? Okay, he's going to do this, and you know, you can practice those kind of, because I've always found to be most craps players are pretty formulaic. You know what I mean? That they have this formula in their head. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this because I think it's going to work. No, it's not. But they do it anyway because it's the way they like to play, right? I mean, I had this stupid bet. So this is one of my favorite bets. And me and Arden made it up one time. It was all the easy ways hopping and the hard ways on. So it's like a $10 bet. And it's just like, but it's a stupid bet, right? But I mean, so typically you have like the players play this kind of way. And I think that's what makes you like a really good dealer, is like, so, you know, Jay comes in, I'm like, okay, I know how Jay plays. You know, maybe she's just the pass line, full odds, 2 combats, full odds, and highways for the boys because she's awesome. So, and then you know that, but and then if he presses up and stuff. So I think that would be something I would try to even remember, even stick calls. I mean, because you can always, you know, a lot of people, I think, have challenges with stick calls. Like there's a lot of dead time, right? Where you're like, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Do what I used to do. Sorry, I'll be quick.
Yeah.
Do what I used to do if I didn't like a dealer? I would, when he came on the stick, start betting the don't, because then it messes them up because they can't do calls for the most part. It's like, oh, what you got now? What are you got to say about that?
5 to not thrive, 5 to not jive. It's just
yeah, you're like, oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't, yeah, so that was funny.
9 is not fine. It's like, it's just like,
stop it. Just stop it. Don't do it. But it's true though. I mean, like, I'm going off on a tangent.
oh yeah.
I don't know many people who were that good when, okay, betting on the don'ts and the don't pass and don't come, and like, how are you going to, you know, doing the calls, because there's, you're like, you're so used to the majority playing one way, so you're like, oh, I built up this huge like repertoire of stick calls,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden this guy's like, whoop, and you're like, oh, okay, don't even try and move his bet off. Don't play that. No, I don't want you to.
I only got one thing. On the don't says he won't. Oh no. What am I
Yeah,
going to do after that?
And then you call a number and you're like, oh, okay, well, what do I do now? I mean, like, I used to just say stuff, but I mean, I used to say lots of gibberish, but it was just like, it's just a challenge, right? I took it as a challenge. I want to say this quick story. It's nothing to do with craps, but I want to say it because I think it's funny. And I mentioned it to Jay earlier. So when I first worked in this casino, in the casinos in Britain, for the longest time, they weren't allowed to have more than 2 slot machines. So they'd have 2 slot machines, and the maximum was like, I think it was like £10, but so that was equivalent of about $15. So it was really low, like maximum, and you could only have 2 machines. So the casinos were very quiet, and that actually comes back to your point over here, right? This is one of the questions that Jay had. Sorry, I'm all choppy. First time I'm doing this, or whatever. You know, would you want a loud or quiet casino? So this is what I kind of I thought of it, and so the casinos were very quiet compared to, you know, with the background noise, the ambience with the slot machines and the coins and things like that. And we used to have this Chinese guy who came in. He was probably in his 80s, and he was a lovely man. He was really sweet old man. And he came in and he'd have his walking stick, and he'd come in, and all he wanted to do was play the slot machines, right? The 2 slot machines. And he would get mad if he had to wait, and then he'd get really mad when he lost on there, and he'd start beating up the machine with his walking stick. When he lost, he was just, it was honestly, it was so funny to watch. Like, he was just like, I can't wait for him to lose because he's going to lose his mind. So because he was such a lovely man, they turned around and they banned his walking stick. So he could come in, but when he came into the reception, they're like, "Come on!" I can't remember his name. It was like Mr. Chu or something. No, Mr. Chu. It was like Mr. Chu or something like that. And they go, "Mr. Chu," and he was a really lovely man. And they go, "Come over here, Mr. Chu. Give me a walking stick." And they had check it into like coat check, and he take his and he then he'd walk in and he'd play, and it was so funny. The only person I ever knew had his walking stick banned. But yeah,
Oh man.
okay. So, what are your thoughts on the whole loud or quiet casino?
Cool. Um, well, I mean, this is the whole thing. This is, for me, the reason why I'm asking this. I mean, like the honest truth is that do you want that? Do you want that stick person that's jovial, that's gonna have all the gibberish and say all the calls, or do you want that stick person that is just calling the solid number because that's the technical way of doing it, and that's what people want to hear. They want the number, they want the result. They don't want any like sass on top of it, And I think it's a lot of there's two different worlds here, and like for me, I want a loud casino. Maybe it's because like we're at that stage where it's not like the 60s or 70s anymore, right? So I think like with the evolution of casinos and like party pits and everything, I think it's becoming more of like a normal thing. It was weird because like before craps came into the city, it was pretty quiet. It wasn't anything crazy. There wasn't a lot of yelling and whatnot. So that game when it came in, it kind of just it changed the atmosphere of the casino. So and I think slot machines are slot machines, but now you hear if you like walk through like and you hear like a bonus, it's like wow, this is different. And even like the like just the sounds, the ambiance is just so much different than it was before. Hearing music, right?
Like I think the casinos have. I mean, I remember someone reading somewhere. I can't remember who it was, and he said, like the floor should be, the carpet should be so like awful and glaring, obviously, just terrible that you have to look up, and the ceiling has to be so bland you have to look down, and all that's left is the tables and the slots, right? But I think gambling should be exciting. It's supposed to make your heart race a little bit, you know what I mean? And I think and get your adrenaline pumping. So I think that's why they have the loud music, and they should have loud music and the slot machines and the bright lights. And if it's all like pedestrian and quiet, I mean, it's just like, oh, is this really that much fun? Like for me, I kind of came from a crap stable that was loud and fast, and you had to see a lot of stuff, and it was busy, and it was exciting. It was exciting to deal and exciting to play, and so it would be weird to. I mean, but saying that, I dealt with there was a player when I worked in London, and he was quite a big player, and he intentionally came in the afternoon, really early in the afternoon, so the chances are there'd be no one else there, and he was like mean as hell. He was like this high-end lawyer in London, tons of money, but just mean. And he would be like, "Don't say anything but the number." And because he dropped a ton of money, they're like, "All right." I mean, he didn't take tips. They were like, "All right." So literally, we were just passing the dice. He'd throw them, and I'd just talk to you, like, "Hey Jay, how was your weekend?" "Oh, it was good. Yeah, how was the wife and kids?" "Oh, they're good." I mean, like 8, and he passed it, and, and the other dealers passed. "Oh yeah, good. Yeah, it was like, oh yeah." And then we talk about rest. You know what I mean? Like me and Arden used to do the same thing. We just chat away. But I guess it depends what players. I mean, like because we kind of catered to him because he specifically tried to get that little time to play and had no interest of. And he was mean. I remember I didn't know this, so I remember coming up on break the first time, and I'm always like, "Ah!" And he turned around and he went, "What the F are you doing?" I was like, "What?" And he's like this laughing because he knows what's coming, and he's just like, he didn't even warn me. He's just for fun. He's just like, "I'm gonna let John get ripped by this guy." He's like, "Don't bat me!" And yeah, you swear it in, and he was like, "Oh my god!" It was like, oh, "Okay, I see what's going on. All right, okay, I'll just call a number," and not even like it wasn't like the field because he never bet them. He's like, "Just call a number." So it was just like 5, 8. It was just weird, totally different experience. But I think myself anyway, I think casinos should be live because it's supposed to be exciting. So all the games. I mean, if it's not exciting, why play it, right? Or any of the table, right?
Well, yeah. Again, this is more of like a generational thing because if you are the older one, it's like no, I want my senior's breakfast and I like peace and quiet. So it's like it was weird because at Baccarat they decided to have like a party pit, and this is like a little while ago, and I was like, hey, you want to DJ? I'm like, okay. So then I'm DJing this party pit, and there's dancers, and there's just loud music. It's all like bright. It's one little area, and it's right by the restaurant. It's like that's where it is. There's 3 tables. That's it. There's a dancer, 2 dancers, whatever. And it was just so weird because like the normal clientele would come in, and it's like 7 p.m. And we're starting to play music. We have like the music videos playing on the screens and stuff like that, and it's just like like the old grannies are just playing slots, and it was just like, oh my god, the first, I think it was the first day, it was just a bunch of like complaints already. It's like, what are you guys doing? And it was like 5 or 6, and you can see like the comment cards are like, oh my god, like people are like signing. I'm like, oh no, this isn't gonna be good. But then there's like a lot that really just like, wow, this is finally, like some people actually tolerated it. It's like a Friday night, a Saturday night. It's like, what else do you expect? But some people are like, man, it was so boring. And then now there's actually music. That's good. So
I remember when
yeah.
I was working in this casino in Bristol, and this local radio station came in, and it was kind of like a 6:30 Ched kind of thing, like a news station, whatever. And they came in, and they were walking around the casino, and they asked if they wasn't just randomly coming in and going, hey, it was, they wanted to talk to people who came into the casinos but didn't gamble, just went in and went to the restaurant and the bars and just kind of like soaked up the atmosphere. They just didn't gamble. And there was a lot of people who did that back then, because it was kind of like an exciting, they go and the restaurants are pretty good, and the beer was always cheap there, and everyone, and I think there's a lot of people who go in there for the atmosphere. Same as like now when you have like the bands and the whatever, so it's a place to go that's it can be kind of cheap and safe and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. For me, you know what? Like River Cree is in my backyard. That's how close I am to it. I can walk. Probably, I think I can walk there. And every time I go in there, I don't really feel like playing. There's a lot of times where I'd rather just sit at the bar and have a drink, and like maybe that's why I didn't like want to work there, because it's like right here and like easy access. It was so cool to just like drive over there and have fun. And they had a nightclub at one point, and I knew the person that was doing like events, so then I'd sneak in. I had my birthday there a couple times, so it was just like, it wasn't really about like the game. I mean, there's a lot of cool dealers there for sure, and like I met them over the years and whatnot, and my brother was there for a little while. So I mean, the people that worked there were cool, but I mean, it wasn't really about playing for me. I just wanted to like go somewhere and just, I like the sounds of casinos. I mean, I guess it's like home, so it's weird, right? Like you go to Vegas, same thing. So
I think it's like casinos here, and not a little bit, I suppose, back in the UK, but they've evolved, right? They have to evolve. They have to become more of a multi-experience kind of location, right? So have events, have shows, have bands, have things, because to draw people in. I mean, like so many. I mean, I went to see a couple of like MMA fights in the River Cree years ago, right? And so you go there. I mean, to be honest, I lost so much money in casinos over the years, and I never won. I was like, oh, okay, I'm done with gambling. But then I would go, and if I was in a casino for something else, I'd be like, maybe I'll play something, But I mean, so I think there's a lot of opportunity to expand the clientele base for that. And to your point, I mean, like earlier when we talked about craps, I might not go in there that often, but if I went, I'd be like, oh, I want to play craps. And if it wasn't there, I'd be like, I don't want to play blackjack. Blackjack sucks. I mean, I would love, to be honest. I think they should. I think, in all honesty, I think they should drop the minimum on craps, or even for a couple of hours. Okay, so get them in, make them learn it. Hey, have 50-cent chips on it. Make them do, like 250 or whatever, or 15 across. Make them 3, 4, 5. So I don't know. It's just. Oh, I heard a bet in Britain, and I hadn't heard of it before. Because remember, we talked about the big 6 and 8 is a useless bet. Nobody wants to play it. It's just a waste of real estate. And in Britain, they've got a bet, and it's over or under 7. It pays even money, but it's over and under 7. But when I saw it, the bet, I was like, well, where would they put it? I mean, like, surely that's just like a self-service bet. Well, just get rid of big 6 and 8 and have over and under 7 in the corner, right? But yeah, so I think I was even thinking as well about, because at one point I know we were going to have Jess talking on about some proposition bets she has in her casino, but for some reason she didn't have a chance to get on. But how could you get people playing the game if there was, like, like, could you get? I even thought, could you get a progressive bet? Like, could you have a progressive bet on craps?
Yeah, you could. I mean, like the fire bet is a really good. I mean, it's hard to say. The fire bet is a good bet right now here in the city. I think like River Cree is doing well with it. I think like the other places, like when someone gets like 5-6 points, it's a big deal, right? So to have a progressive bet, yeah, I mean it's possible to do that too. Because like once it gets big, then the players are going to come out and be like, well, there's a chance, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, remember when the poker room first started with like 24 hours in the palace, and they started doing like the bad beat, and it would get like big, and then if it went, all of a sudden like the game died, and they would just go and to find the next bad beat, right?
Yeah, and then I think for them to remove the cap of 10,000 was a good idea, and now it's like, yeah, if it's growing in one place, why wouldn't I go there and try to win it? It's just like the Diamond Millions in slots. It's like if it goes to 2 million, yeah, like there's gonna be lots of people that want to do it. So like every progressive, I think is cool, except for the ones on the ships.
Oh, so yeah, which we'd reset at the end of the cruise, allegedly. So talking about that, I was on we did a Norwegian cruise out of Britain, Harwich, and it went out Norway. And we did back-to-back cruises, and it was the only time I'd ever earned anyway, minimum tips, where like we made nothing. We didn't even make the bare minimum, and we had to get a salary like bumped up to make the difference. And we had like one cruise, we had 600 British pensioners who stiffed everybody. They didn't come into the casino, but they stiffed everybody. And then the following one was like 800. And we had this group of, I can't remember where they're from, but this group of people, and they were awful. They had lots of money, but they were just awful. And like the type of people where, I remember one time they were dealing, I'll get to the point in a minute, but he was smoking his cigar and on the roulette, and the end fell off, like this big stogie. The end fell off, and it just burnt, like it was burning the layout. And the guy didn't even flinch. He just looked and he just carried on. And I was like, you're just a jerk, man. I mean, he didn't try and knock it off. He just like, meh, whatever. It was just the whole group. There's like 20 of them. They're awful. And anyway, so we're halfway through this cruise. It's like I think it was a 10-day cruise or whatever it was. And so I take this dealer off on the Caribbean stud, and I take the dealer off, and he goes, the progressive lights are always on. They're not working. Even if you don't put the dollar in, they're just always on. So I'm like, okay. So there was only two players. It was like 1 o'clock, 1:30. So it was quite late for that casino anyway. And anyway, so there's one player, one of this Greek, like I can't remember, it's like from Mediterranean somewhere. And so I turned around to him and I said, you're not playing the slot machine, the progressive, even though the light's on. If you want to play it, put your dollar on top, and then we can see it, the cameras can see it. And he's like, no, I'm not going to play it, rip off. And he would look at 4 cards and not look at the 5th one, like, whatever. So anyway, so the first hand, nothing. Second hand, he looks at it and he flips it over, and he's got a straight flush. And so, and I was like, oh, look at that. And I flip over mine and I got nothing. So he wins $5, right? And then his friend starts kicking off. His lights on. You've got to pay him the progressive, like 10% of the progressive, whatever. And I'm like, you didn't play it. I told you didn't play it, because he's just a jerk. I'm like, you didn't play it. You didn't put the money in. You're not going to pay. And he's like, no, I did. And the friend's like, yep, the light's on. Can't prove you didn't play it. So I called over the whatever the supervisor was. I can't remember his name. And of course, he knows these people because they're awful. And he walked over and literally he's like, you never played it. You're never having it. I'm not giving you the money. So after all that, oh
my God. That's funny. Oh, I lost you. I think I don't know if we're still live or whatnot, but I think that John might have fallen out. If there's anybody on, hey, I don't know if there's anybody on, but if you're on, come say hi. That I am just sitting here and John's sending me a message. His laptop died. So we will jump back on in 1 second here.